Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Gentlemen, I hope you guys had a good long weekend, and I hope you're ready for, we're going to be diving into some more MLR news and then much more. How are you guys doing?
Man, not too bad. Like you said, nice little Valentine's Day, family day, kind of multi-holiday long weekend. That's kind of rare. You don't really get those too often, but nice to, spend some time with the loved ones and all, and, get back to some Major League Rugby now that it's all done. We actually went up your way and did some hiking around like Peterborough on the weekend.
Oh, nice. So. Listen, that's what we did a little bit of that this weekend as well. The area's got tons of places. If anyone's ever looking just for places, just go for a nice hike. You'll never miss with Peterborough. That's for sure. Stu, how are you doing, buddy? How was your weekend?
I'm doing well, thanks. I think one of the issues with being in lockdown is that days just blend into one another. So it just depends on which day has an alarm and which day doesn't at this point. But I'm keeping well. I'm looking after myself. Getting out, trying to get 10,000 steps in each day, which is a bit harder when there's fresh snow by a foot or two outside your front door. But gotta keep moving, keep trying these things.
I was gonna say,
making healthy choices.
Dan, me and you were allowed to go do stuff again. It's just Stu that's like stuck inside.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I
wouldn't necessarily recommend doing everything, right?
No, I've gotten used to this life that I live now. This sheltered life of watching sports, watching Six Nations. The Scotties Tournament of Hearts starts on Friday, so I get to watch some live curling again. Getting fired up for that. So I'm kind of used to just living in my own little bubble and just watching sports. It's been kind of great. Unless I'm a Leafs fan, then you watched the game last night. That was brutal.
Oh my God. Why did you
listen, we're going to start with sadness.
Yeah.
But
we're not.
We can only go up from here.
Exactly. You got to start somewhere. And you know what, guys, let's get right into it because the Arrows have added a few names to their roster to kind of get ready for this training camp that has already been about a week in. And the first guy we're going to talk about is someone who is a familiar face. The fiery red prop, Pat Lynott, has re-signed with the Arrows. Now, gentlemen, the loose head position is quite an interesting one for the Arrows because they had announced that a certain player would be joining them, but according to the Queensland Reds in their preseason games, Richie Ayazada has not left Australia, so it looks like we might not be seeing him this season. So my question to you guys is, what is Pat's role going to be with the team? Because Ayazada was the starter last year. Does this kind of open the door for Lynott to be one of the guys that takes over that number 1 jersey?
I think so. I mean, if you kind of look at the Arrows prop situation right now, like, you got Lynott and Brouwer on the loose head side, and Brouwer obviously was the best prop in the league in 2019. He looked in phenomenal form in the few games he played last year, and then obviously the world shut down, so we didn't get to see him for the entire season. Then you have on the tight head side, you have Keith Rowland, Cortez, and Marc-Antoine Ouellette, who are all tight heads. So I guess you could have the option. I mean, the option is probably there to kind of mix and match that a little bit, see if somebody's willing to or able to convert to the loose head side. But beyond that, it's pretty much looks like it's going to be between Brouwer and Lynott for the number 1 jersey. So I think that is a big opening for Lynott. But I mean, obviously nothing's come out from the club in any official capacity yet, other than his face being absent from the roster page on their website. But yeah, like you said, Dennis, like Ayazada played for the Queensland Reds in a trial match last week against the Waratahs, and is he wasn't on the thing is, like, that kind of confused me with the Queensland Reds, or which is confusing me with the Queensland Reds right now, is so Ayazada wasn't included on their initial, like, this is the 2021 squad announcement.
Yeah.
But he was part of like a massive PR tour thing that they were like I think they called it like Reds to Regions or something like that, where they went like I guess around Queensland visiting schools and whatnot to promote the team and promote the upcoming season. And then he played in the trial match. He actually played at hooker for that match too, playing the full second half. And but after that, now he's on the Queensland Reds roster page on their website.
No, I wonder if it's like a medical joker situation, like someone got hurt
I don't
and
know.
in Queensland with the
I
Reds.
genuinely don't know.
You don't know everything about the Queensland Reds?
No, I don't. I know Richie Asiate is one of their hookers.
Stu, I have
Allegedly. But ultimately, if that's the case, then yeah, that definitely opens up a massive window for Lynott. And he's been good in his appearances in the league so far. Like he definitely is capable of being an MLR, like a starting MLR prop. And like last year, he played 4 games, total of 85 minutes, obviously coming off the bench a lot behind Asieta, and then also Rob Brower coming into the mix later in the year as well. 12 tackles at 85%. The Arrow scrum was phenomenal, no matter who was in it. I'm convinced that they could, like, looking at what their scrum was doing last year. I am very convinced that you can put any combination of front row guys there, and they're going to win this. Like, you would be, I don't know why you would bet against the Arrows losing a scrum.
Yeah.
But so Lynott's a part of that. Good scrummager. There's a lot of guys on the team that he can learn from. You got Cortez and stuff now coming in too. That'll be a big boost to him just for like that scrum coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Brower,
And
Brower still being on the team's a big veteran presence. That could help him out a lot too. And I think if I'm Lynott, I'm super excited because this could be a breakout year for him if you're positioned to do it now. So
for sure. And you know what? On this podcast before the 2020 season, I would call that PS pre-Stu. You were actually able to go to some of their training camp sessions, and you said on this podcast that Lynott, the difference in his just his physique from the first season going into this season was a big change. And you said that he was someone to look forward to watching going into the 2020 season. So we might have lost a little bit of time, but I think maybe this year will be a big year for him. Now,
hello, everyone. It's Derek Brissett here, and I would like to apologize for interrupting Rouge Rugby episode 60. I hope you are enjoying it so far, but I just wanted to pause to kind of introduce this new segment that I like to call the Rouge Rugby Editor's Note. Now, during that opening segment, we said a handful of things that, quite frankly, are outdated now. And, so I thought I would just take a moment to kind of correct what we kind of said, although I don't want to completely get rid of the whole conversation. So that's why I decided to do it like this. Basically, at the risk of pulling back the curtain on the glamorous life that is making a rugby podcast, sometimes we record and then in between the time that we record and are able to get the episode edited and out to the public on your favorite podcasting platforms, we sometimes receive information that makes what we said already outdated. And considering that the bulk of that conversation was kind of based on some outdated information, I figured I would take the moment to correct it. So at the time when discussing Pat Lynott and Richie Asieta, the amount of info that we were basically going off of was Asieta appeared on the Queensland Reds roster page on their website. He played in a trial match against the Waratahs the week prior, and he was also no longer included on the Toronto Arrows website. So that was the information that we're kind of going off of. And as you can kind of tell, maybe by piecing together things that we said in the introduction, we were talking about Valentine's Day and Family Day and the Leafs inexplicably blowing a 5-1 lead to the worst team in the NHL. Hopefully, if you're able to put that together, we did record this earlier in the week. We actually recorded this on Tuesday, the same time we actually did our interview with Lucas Rumball for episode 59, which is now available wherever you listen to podcasts. We recorded that on the Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday morning, the Queensland Reds named Richie Asieta as the reserve hooker to their lineup to play the Waratahs on Friday morning. Um, in the opening match of the 2021 Super Rugby AU campaign. Asiata did play in that game. He played 11 minutes as the Reds just destroyed the Waratahs 41-7. Great opening weekend for them. So congratulations to Richie for making your Super Rugby debut. That is awesome. It's one of the best leagues in the world. Just playing one game, just getting there is a massive career achievement. And obviously wishing him the best of luck in the 2021 season. After the initial release of the Queensland Reds opening week lineup with Asiata listed as the reserve hooker, the Toronto Arrows sent out a press release that indicated that they did in fact reach an agreement with the Queensland Reds for the transfer of Richie Asiata. The club received a transfer fee for that, with the amount of the transfer fee was undisclosed. And ultimately, that makes Richie Asiata the first ever external transfer in Major League Rugby history. So that's going to be a really cool trivia question for somebody to be able to answer in 5-10 years when we're looking back on the origins of the league. So now that it is completely confirmed that Asiata will be playing for the Queensland Reds for the duration of the 2021 season, the Arrows are down to Lynott and Brower as the two loose head props. Ultimately, I still think that might mean that there's some experimentation, seeing which guys are able to cover the loose head side in the event of an injury or suspension, strategic, personal, or any other reason that Brower and Lynott would not be able to play in a game. You might need somebody that's able to cover that loose head side. I think training camp is going to be the perfect place to experiment with that and figure out who's the best fit to do that. But ultimately, the battle for that number one jersey will come down to Lynott and Brower, and it is a big opportunity for Lynott, and I still think that it is. I just wanted to take the quick moment out of this episode just to kind of explain that it's like, yeah, we kind of recorded that without necessarily all the information that is now available now that it is much later in the week and time has passed. So essentially that's kind of an update on that situation. And it is, I guess, the joys of recording a podcast sometimes, where sometimes you do say some things and then before the public actually gets to hear it, the thing that you said is already significantly out of date. Or so I just wanted to take the moment to kind of add that new piece of info to this podcast, since it was a big cornerstone of that opening discussion there. So ultimately, I really just wanted to take this moment in the first ever Rouge Rugby editor's note to mention that, yeah, Richie Asiata has become the first external transfer in Major League Rugby history. He will be playing for the Queensland Reds in the 2021 season. Now, with that being said, I would like to return to episode 60 of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show.
I do have a question for you, and it still retains to Mr. Lynott. The loose head position for Rugby Canada is also very shallow right now. Hubert Biden's retired after the World Cup, so that leaves Justice Sears Duru and Rob Brower. So does this season kind of be a show me what you can do season for Lynott and possibly have a chance at making a run at the national team as well, going into the summer tests, whatever those look like?
Oh, absolutely. I think we've all speculated and talked about it that this should be the building period towards the next World Cup. This should be where we're finding the players for Canada that are going to be stepping up for the team in France in 2023. And for Lynott, this is a great time. Obviously, the Arrows are going to have coaching consultancy from Rob Howley, who will also be working with the Rugby Canada setup over there. So obviously, being placed in a position where he can be starting for the Arrows will inevitably help him in a bid to be one of the starters for Rugby Canada during the hopefully summer test season. But whenever we can get the qualification matches for the Americas for the next Rugby World Cup, ideally as soon as possible, then this season is going to be the indicator, and hopefully injuries and serious injuries don't come up. But yeah, we could be seeing an interesting new shape being taken to the Canadian team.
Ross Brody joins the Arrows, and he's an interesting prospect, not only for the Arrows, but for Canada. He's another new Canadian international scrum half, joining the likes of Jason Higgins. He comes from South Africa, but is eligible through his father, who was actually born in Montreal. He attended prestigious school in South Africa, and also played through the Bulls age grade program. So he definitely has been part of some successful programs over in South Africa. Made the jump and was actually introduced at the high performance camp in Canada. So he's a very interesting prospect. And I'm going to ask you guys this question because, again, I'm not really big into South African rugby, admittedly, other than the fact that I know that they won the World Cup. But how much does his pedigree, and a lot of people talked about him playing for Grey College. That was a big talking point. But how much does his pedigree of his tutelage in South Africa going to play in his positioning in the depth charts? Because at the end of the day, he's an unknown commodity. You know, we haven't seen him in MLR. We haven't seen any preseason tape of him. We don't really know anything about him. But just kind of going into this, you know, we've got two new scrum halves that we're very much not familiar with. The coaching staff would be. Where does all of this kind of training that he's had take in consideration when we look at the depth chart for the Arrows?
Well, obviously he's coming in with some pedigree. Like Grey College is like if you need to know anything about like high school rugby in South Africa, Grey College is like a Springbok factory. They've produced the most Springboks of any school in the country. And like
pretty good.
It's a lot. Yeah, there's some prestigious names that have rocked the Grey College kit there. So, and the fact that also Brody captained the Grey College team on a few occasions as well. So, you know, he kind of comes in with that. With the Bulls age grade too, they're back-to-back champions. So like there's a lot. He's got the success there, but I don't think that means much once you actually get to camp. Like we'll see like what he can actually bring. Like I think you look at the 9 jersey became, with the signing of Brody, the 9 jersey becomes very intriguing for the Toronto Arrows. And it's because you got Andrew Ferguson, who has been capped by Canada, and then you got Jason Higgins and Ross Brody, who are 2 guys that, you know, we haven't really seen in Canada yet, but they qualify for Canada based on, you know, parental heritage. So it'll be interesting to see, because it's like, in a way, like what the Arrows do with how their training camp plays out, how I guess even Silverthorne and Winokur kind of decide who gets to start, that could be a little bit of an indication on like where like their hierarchy kind of lands like within Rugby Canada as well, right? Because you're kind of looking at like, I mean, with the exception of like Will Percillier playing in France right now, like there's a real good chance that you're looking between Brody, Higgins, Ferguson, like you're looking at the next World Cup scrum half in Canada, right? I mean, obviously Percillier in France definitely has his hat in the ring for that.
For sure. And you know what? It's really interesting. We've got a lot of really interesting young scrum halves, especially some that have signed in MLR, like Fraser Hurst and Crosby Stewart. Yeah. Like, you know, we've got some names that you know Rugby Canada has on their radar. So to add another one is kind of bananas to me.
Yeah, it's well, I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think that this kind of, in a weird way, kind of goes back to what we were talking about last time with like the crossover athletes and stuff. And it's like the hardest thing about like learning like a game sometimes is just like, you know, the rugby IQ, like the mental awareness and everything when you're playing
For
the
sure.
game. And it's like for that reason, like 9 and 10 are the hardest positions to probably learn.
Oh, for sure.
And you kind of look at it and it's like I think this is the one like awesome thing of kind of about this is like you look at like Peter how old was Peter Nelson when he arrived to Rugby Canada last year? Like do we remember? I don't remember.
Well, I am going to Google him.
All right, Google how old Peter Nelson is. Um but I think looking at Ross Brody here, it's like the unreal thing I think about him is that he's 21 years old.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you get a guy that not only grew up playing through the South African system, learning how to be and like look at like the nines that South Africa has produced too. Like they are, again, like you're saying, Great College is a Springbok factory, and it's like South Africa's like scrum half factory. Right. And
Mhm.
but he grew up and he played through that entire system, and now at a young age of 21 is making the decision to come and play for Canada internationally, come play for the Toronto Arrows. So it's like you get kind of that benefit of the fact that he's grown up, like, and I mean, realistically, it is what it is. Like playing high school rugby in South Africa is a different level than anything you can touch here.
Sure.
Prior to when you turn pro, you look like you're about to say something here, Dan, or you want to say?
Peter Nelson is 28 now. He's born in 1992, so
All
he
right,
would have been
he was
26, 27.
26, 27 last year, right? So, like, I think though, like, if you kind of look at Brody now, it's like we can get him, like, if he performs and is able to go to the World Cup. And I mean, if you watch a video of him playing at Great College, it's like he can go to the World Cup. But if he performs well and can get to like say the World Cup team, you can get him at a World Cup when he's 23, get him at a World Cup 4 years. Like you can get multiple World Cups out of him, as opposed to like finding guys that are already maybe they still hung on to that dream of like playing for their own country and stuff, and finding them like a little bit later. But I think so I think this is could be a huge opportunity kind of for Canada, because like I mean we've talked about it, we need scrum halves and we need fly halves bad. So I mean, take them wherever you can find them, and if you got to go to South Africa, you got to go to Ireland to find them, then so be it and stuff. And I
Yeah.
hope like I'm glad to see Brody here. By all accounts, he was phenomenal at the high performance camp. So I think like I'm stoked that he's coming. I can't wait to see what he does this year.
Now, Stu, you had some interesting discussions on Reddit on the MLR subthread when Ross was actually announced, uh, because of the fact that someone was making the comment about how Canada is relying a lot on foreign players coming in, and I think this person was talking a little bit more about the kind of the domestic level, but it kind of it grows into the if you look at Canada's two fly halves that play the majority of the World Cup, it was two guys born in Ireland, Shane O'Leary and Peter Nelson. Do you feel concerned that we're having to rely on this, or is it just that we got to be patient kind of deal when it comes to these skilled positions like 9 and 10?
Yeah, I think it's a question of patience at the moment, in the fact that as much as we would like to see an all Canadian setup for the Arrows, I also know that if the first 15 for the Arrows is also the first 15 for Canada, if there's ever a clash, they'll be called up. And at the same time, it's good to have these foreign players that come from tier one nations that have the experience of having started rugby much sooner than, say, a Canadian domestic player would have. And therefore, they have that experience to pass on to other players. Of course, changing with coaching staff as well can obviously make a huge difference. And for the time being, it will be a case of, yes, we will need these foreign players because they have been trained specifically in these positions. It's not something you can just do of like, oh yeah, we've got a few too many wingers that are Canadian. Let's just put one at 10 and see how it goes. You especially at the professional level, you can't make a decision on the fly like that. And so you need to have the training in place to train players to be able to fulfill the modern number 10 role. And for the time being, that means you'll have to have a certain reliance on foreign national players that won't be eligible as domestic players in like MLR, for example. So there are a number of players that I know these guys are, but for other teams, they because it's also something for like the US as well, is that they'll have players that are foreign national and unable to be capped by the United States or unable to fall under the domestic player allocation for the time being. And it may be a case of like, oh, if they stay in the US or Canada for 5 years, perhaps, but obviously a World Cup happens in that time period. So you need to have the options available. So yeah, personally, I think that, contact me in 5 years' time. And if we're still in the situation of we're still dependent on these foreign players for number 10, then I think we may have missed something. But for now, it's just a game of patience, really. And hopefully it'll pay dividends later down the line.
See, I kind of think, though, like, especially like within the case of like Brody and Higgins, like if World Rugby is going to say that these guys can play for your country, like,
let's take them.
Yeah, take them. They're in your player pool. Like
I don't think we'll ever get to a point.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll ever get to a point in North America where rugby is as special and important as South Africa or New Zealand or even like it's just not going to happen.
Like, even those countries though, like look, like not everybody on those teams.
Oh,
born.
No, New Zealand has how many Pacific Islanders on the team not born there and trained? It's just how it works in rugby, unfortunately. And
do we maybe need to do a better job of like developing 9s and 10s and other positions? Sure.
Yes.
Or whatever. But if the Springbok factory that is Grey College is like, hey, we have a Canadian, if you're interested, yes, I'm very much interested. The same way that like DTH Vandermeer, James Pritchard, it's like bring over, like if they're allowed to play for Canada, then play them.
But this is the thing as well, is that if you're
eligible to play,
if you're in a tier 1 nation that produces like such great players, say like New Zealand, for example, and you're a fly half, but you're never going to be picked because Dan Carter or one of the Barretts is always available, then maybe do a bit of digging through your family tree and find a nation that's in need of a fly off and off your pop. Or future plannings, try and get a visa for a certain country and end up extending.
Or look at guys like James Lowe. Like that guy's got all the talent in the world, and all it was is that it just wasn't the right time for New Zealand, and he had like rheumatoid arthritis, which he still deals with, but it was really bad back when they were selecting people. He even played for the Maori All Blacks, and like it just didn't work out for him, and so he got a contract in Ireland, and now he's capped by Ireland. Like it just happens sometimes, and
it's
Ireland's not sad about it. They're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It happens in every single sport in the world. So I mean, like I think I saw those comments and stuff too, and I do to a degree agree with what the Reddit post was saying. Sorry, I forget the username. But like
I can look, but
we probably need to do a bit of a better job. Like we'll see. We got looks like a solid generation coming up though. Like I said, with Crosby Stewart, Will Kelly, Percillier, like there's guys that are going to be in the 9s and the 10s jerseys that will be great. Hopefully will be great. But like I think like Brody has a father that was born in Montreal, which makes him by World Rugby standards, that makes you Canadian. That legitimately makes him Canadian. He would have an actual Canadian passport with that. So like if you're Canadian, you're Canadian. Doesn't matter where you're born. If you're if you're Canadian, you're Canadian. Come play. That's kind of where I stand on that. So it'd be silly to turn down guys. But yes, we do need to do a bit of a better job developing the position. But I mean,
We're on our
we
way.
can get some help from South Africa too. I'm not
Yeah.
turning that down.
Okay, guys. So we're gonna move on now. There have been a few MLR signings. Seattle has been consistently slowly rolling out their roster. They've added some domestic and foreign players. We're not going to get too much of it because really not a whole lot of Canadian content there. But we did want to look at MLR as a whole, and I'm going to give you guys three stories that came out of the Dallas Jackals dispersal draft, and I want you guys to tell me which one you guys found the most interesting. The first one is Connor Mooneyham, the first overall pick, signed with Austin. And kind of part of that story is he going to get any playing time with the Gilgroni stacked backline? The next one is Carlo Denishin signing with San Diego. Was that kind of a dream pairing out of this whole Dallas nightmare? I mean, San Diego lost Devereaux Ferris to the Seawolves, so this kind of seems like between him and Nate Otzberger, they're going to have a good little situation going there. And then the last one is Christian Rodriguez going home and signing with the Guillotines. That's a fun story all on its own, but he was one of the more impressive revelations at the World 10 Series. So I'm going to give you guys the chance to pick which ones you thought were the most interesting. And I'm going to start with you, Stu. Which one did you think was kind of the most interesting story going into these training camps?
I think it's tied. Sorry to be on the fence about it.
Wow.
But I think Denishan and Rodriguez were both great signings. Obviously, Denishan, and I believe that will build competition in San Diego for that starting jersey. And obviously, I think competition also breeds progress. Like they can both, be professional about it and pick up on what they're lacking individually to improve the team as a whole. But having seen Rodriguez at the 10 series, that is a fantastic. So it was a fantastic signing for Dallas to begin with, and so it's now a fantastic signing for LA as well. Obviously, it all depends on what happens in training camp. I'm sure the coaches will be able to see what will fit better into each of their respective team plans. But these are some great names to have in their teams.
Stu picked two options, cheated.
Cheated.
He still did not pick the right answer to this question.
I was buttering it up for you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, I was going to say, I think it's all Connor so far anyways. What's been announced so far? I would say it's Connor Mooneyham to Austin. You got the number one pick in the first ever MLR draft, who by all accounts looks MLR ready. Dan, you did mention the stacked back line in Austin, but at the very least, hey, they still have a bench. So I mean, I'm sure he's going to get some playing time there. So
and the flexibility of being a center or a wing is nice.
Center wing,
well.
There's the flexibility. You never know too. I mean, like it's the season's long, it's unpredictable. You got to move guys around and stuff for various reasons. But I think you look at kind of the situation with Mooneyham being that first overall pick, being hyped up as the great player that he hopefully will become, and then drafted by Dallas. Dallas can't play or pulls out of the season, goes in, and he's going to an in-state Texas Cup rival team. I think that's quite a tasty little side story. Be interesting also to see if it comes back in a year, or what happens with. We still have no idea what's going to happen with a lot of the Dallas roster in a year's time, but I think to me it's that one, and I think to me too, like the big one I think with that is I think Mooneyham, and realistically, I guess anybody that kind of got drafted this year, it'll be very interesting to see how guys kind of perform in comparison to like the rest of the league, see how like strong the draft class is, see how well, guys from 1 down to 24 picks, see how they all kind of stack up when they actually get some Major League Rugby playing time in. And Mooneyham being the number one pick, that's going to be, kind of the spotlights on you, to kind of see how you perform right out of the gate. Cause I feel like this is the first MLR draft. So this is the draft class that realistically has to set.
People are going to remember.
This is the one that has to set the tone for everybody else, the future to come. The 2021 draft class, the 2022, it's like, it's all right now, like this is the original, so this is what everyone's going to compare it to. So, and Mooneyham, you're the first overall pick, so that's you are now the standard bearer of what every first overall pick in the MLR draft will be compared to. Until the MLR is like so successful and long gone that it's a strain to remember who was in the first draft class. But
you'll remember the name Mooningham.
yeah, exactly. It's the ultimate trivia question and stuff. And I mean, Denishin is cool, but I mean, like, it's, I think he probably, like, I don't know. I think the situation in Dallas with him starting would have been interesting. I think you kind of go with you have two, like, that's kind of the thing, right? Like sometimes, obviously San Diego kind of replaces some of their scrum half depth there, but that's kind of what it is. It's like, I think, it's a guy that Colorado, with his time with Colorado, showed that he definitely can start in Major League Rugby, and now he's kind of a bit of a depth role again. So I like the move from San Diego. You can never have enough too many scrum halves, but
yeah. The nice thing is Osper has also played on the wing as well, so maybe that just gives a little bit more flexibility as well. To me, it's Christian Rodriguez signing with the Guiltinis.
See, you should have just picked one. Like, then we could have had all.
Yeah, we could have had nice flow. But you know what? Local kid. And one of the cool things when he kind of did a little promo about signing with them, is the fact that he wants to give back to the local community. That he learned his rugby from. So I think that's always so cool. And him and Aaron Matthews were two of the exciting young guys at the World 10 Series. So I'm excited to see him join the ranks of MLR. One of the last things we're going to talk about, guys, is San Diego has announced their new arena, or unofficially have announced. America's Rugby News has released that San Diego is set to play home games at Cashman Field in Las Vegas. Apparently, it's just located north of the Vegas Strip. It's a converted baseball field, and from some of the photos that I looked into, it looks like it's a much better situation compared to some of the other ball diamonds that MLR has had to use.
I think they already converted parts of it.
Yeah, it's now a soccer venue.
Team that plays there.
Yeah, it's a soccer venue now.
The Las Vegas Lights of the USL play there.
Capacity of like 9,000. So, we don't know if they're going to be allowed fans. We don't know if it's going to be a certain capacity, but definitely has the room to get some people in there. My question to you guys, it's got to be quick answers. Is this going to be a setup? Are they really going to be watching this to see if Las Vegas could be another spot to put an MLR team? Is this kind of a trial run? Is what I'm asking.
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think if you wanted to, I mean, maybe, but I think like this is a terrible year to test like things like ticket sales or something that would actually be needed to really assess if you wanted to have a team there, right? Like, I think you kind of look at it as like, the San Diego needs a place to play. They picked Vegas. This stadium's available. But beyond that, like, I think if this was 2019 and they were like, hey, like San Diego's going to play a couple home games in Vegas, and then they did the Vegas weekend and then this happened, then maybe I would be like, maybe they're doing a test run to get into Vegas. Did Killebrew not mention Vegas as
yes,
part
he
of,
did.
He
like
did.
as like one of the in that press release from like
that's why I'm curious.
Yeah.
So like obviously,
so why not go back to Sam Boyd?
Yeah, they're not, because it's crap.
Sam Boyd's too big.
It's too big. It's too old.
But
if you can only have so many fans in the stands, why,
then you don't need one that's too big. You need the other direction. I just like, I think there's deservedly, I think there's interest. It seems like there's at least some interest in Las Vegas from Major League Rugby. They've shown that they're at least partially interested in the city, especially with the Vegas weekend last year. You can debate how successful that actually was, but obviously Major League Rugby is interested in Las Vegas to a degree. But I think this would be an absolutely terrible year to test if like a market's good though. Just because it's like if like you can't have fans, or you can have limited fans and stuff. I mean, maybe it helps. Maybe it's a little bit of an indicator, like, but I feel like in any other year, I feel like I might say yes to your theory here, Dan. But I think just because it's like of the weirdness that this is, it'd be like
That's fair.
I don't think, like, do we feel like the NBA is looking at Tampa as a basketball market right now because the Raptors are there, or are they just kind of
Fair
like,
point.
hey, they're playing, right? Or like I don't think like Major League Baseball is probably not being like, oh man, like we got to put a team in Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yeah, like let's go.
Damn it. You know what?
We-
I
we've
thought
been
that was a
sleeping
good
on
question,
this
but you kind of
Buffalo
poked the
market.
holes in my logic.
Yeah, it's like I don't know,
It's
like if
good. Didn't think about it that way.
I'm gonna counter that. I'm gonna say that for an investment group, or for someone to invest in MLR, you have to sometimes throw caution to the wind and see if you can risk it for the biscuit. And it seems like these are very specific scenarios in which you obviously can't take away things like ticket sales or attendance because of COVID. But hopefully, as the vaccine rollout happens throughout North America, maybe things change. Maybe the stadium seating increases, and if there's an investment group already in Las Vegas who's already like on the fence about
take
the
season with a grain of salt. Say we know that in the next season it'll be different, so let's just see, with COVID in mind, let's see how this season goes.
Exactly. Right? And if you say like, okay, this is a venue that we can work together with the city of Las Vegas and with the Las Vegas Lights group, and because it's the same thing in like the UK, a lot of rugby teams will play at soccer or football stadium, we call them, and it's because they're the same pitch dimensions, which you don't get with like an American football pitch. So it's much more beneficial to have. There's also been talks about the stadium being redeveloped because they want to make it a Major League Soccer venue and the team be in the MLS, which could then develop into a Major League Rugby development plans, in the sense of some stadia will have a bigger capacity than required at the moment, but you can say, oh, we'll limit it to 10,000 seats maximum, and then when we hit 10,000, we'll increase it to 15,000 or 20,000. And especially if the United States is bidding for a World Cup, and when that happens, or when that's announced, I think is May next year. Is that correct? Sometime next year, as the decision is made, and it is the US. I can see the joining fee for joining MLR to skyrocket as well. So maybe you want to get in a bit early, and if your resources are limited to, the Legion playing in Las Vegas, then maybe just got to take a roll of the dice.
I like that, Stu. Well, that's where we're going to end it tonight, gentlemen.
I was going to say, or they're just playing there because they can't play in San Diego right now.
That's also true. Both of you made very convincing arguments, and that's what I appreciate about you gentlemen. Now, if anybody else is interested in hearing Mr. Brissett's voice, he also joined the Earful Dirt podcast on their latest episode and talked football a little bit. You're a little quiet talking about some of that football there, Derek. My wife and I were chuckling at that, but they talked about.
Dude, if you can throw the ball forward, I don't know anything about it, man. That's like I got nothing. I was watching the Super Bowl. Like there's four they kept getting extra downs. No one was getting points for kicking the ball.
I'm surprised he didn't just like shout while they're talking. The CFL's better. But
I should have. I tried to sneak it in at the end. I said we got to invite them up for like a Grey Cup recap.
Yeah.
Next, hopefully the CFL plays this year.
Hopefully,
we'll invite them up for a Grey Cup recap.
That's a whole another.
We can get them to
ball full of wax.
The Grey Cup halftime show.
Listen, you know what we'll do is we'll have them come on and we can do a recap of the Tim Hortons Briar next March. It's a month from now.
Then I have to watch that.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to get you both into curling. But yeah, no, listen, guys. Listen on to the episode. Has a lot of really interesting information about what's going on with the Arrows, what's going on with MLR, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it is fantastic. And if you want to listen to more of our episodes, go to Rouge Rugby on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have links to our episodes that are archived or find us on any podcast streaming service. And you know what? Make sure you give us a little comment and a little review saying how awesome we are and how much you love the podcast, because that's how other people are going to see it, and that's how we're just going to grow this little show. So, gentlemen, we've got some Scotties this weekend, which is fantastic. We've got a little bit of a break from Six Nations, but it'll be back soon, and we've got tons of training camp rumors to look forward to.